What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are back with another episode of Lions Latest, going through the latest Detroit Lions news. And today, we are here with some Lions moves to discuss. But also, I wanted to revisit that Lions-Bears game at least one more time. And today, we're going to spotlight the secondary. We had a lot of moving pieces back there. Ife Melifonwu back in the mix. And I didn't think in our breakdown video that we did Monday, if you want to check that out, we had enough defense in that video. So today, I wanted to give more shine to that side of the ball. So let's get it started. Before we get too far into today's video, as always, got to give a shout out to BetUS for sponsoring today's video and this NFL season, man. The code is down at the top of the description. If you're looking for your sports book for the sports betting, maybe casino games, you want to jump on the MVP odds as that's coming down to the wire here. College football playoffs, YouTube 150 is the code. You can get a 150% deposit match on your first deposit, 125% on the next two deposits as your sign-up bonus up to $2,000. Right now, the early odds and lines are out for Lions Niners. The spread is Lions -3. I thought I had to throw this in here. -3. Okay. Now I'm not one that likes to jump on the Lions should be like -10. I'm not even saying this is wrong necessarily, but I just know with how the spreads have been so far this season, this will surprise some people. Lions -3. Yes, we are on the road, but Lions -3 on the 49ers, who are essentially out of the playoffs. I think that this is a super intriguing line. Now, the 50.5 over-under also feels intriguing too, because it feels like we always go over that number. But I just got to circle this one. Even the money line at -190 is much better than you typically can get it at for the Lions. So if you want to take a look at betting on this game, BetUS is the place to be, man. Jump on it right now. Go to their website. They even have an app, but it's better, I think, on the website. Go to BetUS, sign up. Now let's get to today's video. Welcome everybody to the video. Glad you guys are here. And yes, we're back with some Detroit Lions roster news, but also kind of a breakdown segment as well. We're going to do both in today's video. But before we get into the secondary, we have to start off with these roster moves because there was a pretty significant roster move that was made earlier today. So Teddy Bridgewater, who was the Lions backup quarterback last season, went back to the high school level for coaching, won the state championship for his alma mater, and apparently this was kind of his plan all along. It's like, yo, go win state, and then I'm going to get back in the NFL, which is like disgusting. Hold up. I'm going to take a step away for a second. Let me go coach my high school team to a state championship, blow out the team like 41-0, and then watch this. Then I'm going to go back to the NFL. All right, so just give me 1 year. We'll be back. It's crazy. That's an absolute flex, Teddy. I see you, though. But here he is. He's officially rejoining the Detroit Lions after the Lions waived a player to open up a roster spot, which we'll get into here in a second. David Long, we'll talk about that here in a second. But Teddy Bridgewater is back with the Lions, which is super exciting. I think we're all kind of fans of Teddy Bridgewater just from what he did in the preseason alone because we really haven't seen anything from him in the regular season with the Lions. But it also brings like a sense of kind of calmness to that quarterback position. Like Hendon Hooker played well. He earned the backup position in the preseason this year. We really haven't seen him in some of those moments. We still haven't seen Hendon Hooker a ton anyway. And to get a guy like Teddy Bridgewater back, and as soon as he stepped in preseason play for the Lions last season, it was like, okay, this guy's different. He's smart. He's playing so fast. He's opening up so many options for us offensively. I had to go back today and just watch some Teddy Bridgewater again from 2023's preseason, and this guy was fantastic. I can remember the first game. After the first game, we reviewed it, and it was like, oh, man, this is different. Like, this guy brings so much stability to the room. He's such a smart player, and I can understand why as a coach. I know what I'm seeing, and you can see it. He looks like a coach on the field. A fast progression offensively. The arm talent isn't fantastic. He's also not the athlete that Hendon Hooker is. Teddy Bridgewater absolutely can play the position. And now with where the Lions are at the quarterback position, Hendon Hooker was their backup. Their practice squad, like their third string quarterback, would have been Jake Fromm at this point if they had to go that direction. I'm sure that was like their emergency quarterback option if they had to go somewhere because he's their only quarterback now on the practice squad. So adding Teddy Bridgewater to the 53-man roster means now we are officially holding three quarterbacks, but I'm perfectly fine with that at this point because this does bring kind of some stability to the room. Maybe it continues to help out a guy like Hendon Hooker. Clearly the Lions like the guy. Clearly he likes the Lions because he's like, yep, I'm coming back to this team. But he plays the game so fast. He understands coverages very quickly. He has a very decisive ability as a quarterback to read it, see it, and just let it go. There's not much hesitation to his game. And he also protects the football, which is such a big part of what our offense is. And we had struggles with that in preseason games with our quarterbacks that were playing in those games until Teddy Bridgewater arrived. 0 interceptions, a touchdown, 212 yards. On 33 attempts, he had 18 completions. He was efficient with the level 3 throws. They would kind of die off a little bit. He also didn't feel like maybe he had some of the vertical push where you could have consistent touch on some of those throws, and it forced him to be very early. I remember going back and talking about Bridgewater. He had to be very early on some of those, but he definitely has enough zip, level 1, level 2, and the anticipation to protect receivers, throw the ball away from guys. This player back just feels so calming to get Teddy Bridgewater back. I'm excited about this. I don't know if he'd be the backup, but I assume that he's going to kind of be like the number 2. The move that made this roster spot open was the Detroit Lions waiving David Long, who was ultimately picked up by the Tennessee Titans. He was claimed, so he didn't land back on the Lions practice squad. But David Long played really well in the last game that he played defensively for the Lions, and then he was waived. And then Quan Alexander was a healthy scratch, and the Lions went with Ben Neiman once Trevor Nowatzki returned and put Ben Neiman at off-ball backer next to Jack Campbell. And this last week against Chicago, Ben Neiman looked back to being comfortable. Like, that's the position that he's used to playing. That's where he's comfortable. That's where he's at his best in terms of coverage drops, but also against the run, he was fantastic. That's what stood out to me the most. David Long, it was kind of a slow start, I felt, when David Long was here, in terms of he would play kind of fast, but he wouldn't play up to his play speed because he was an athlete, but he would let things kind of happen and then be reactive and responsive after it would happen. And we still had some occasional breakdowns here and there from David Long, even when he started to get things rolling, just being over-aggressive. To run, his aggressiveness translated so well against Buffalo. He gave us a huge answer in a room that was struggling when they were lightening the box and they were stressing our linebackers. We were very thin at that position. Once he stepped in and took a majority of the snaps in that game, it was the most that he had played with the Lions. He played fantastic. He was reading the offensive linemen's pullers as his keys, and he was getting on top of things as the will backer, scraping on top of plays, taking guys out of the play. So David Long really emerged into, like, that's who David Long is. He has to play fast, and when he's playing fast, he's at his best. And even the same thing kind of in coverage, where it was at first, I was like, I just don't love it. I see him reacting to it, and I could see the athleticism, but I just don't see him making a play on the ball. He's just kind of leaving it there. But slowly it kind of worked along, and it was like, okay, this is where David Long's at his best. But then also to have a guy like Quan Alexander be a healthy scratch was a little bit like, okay, what are we doing now? Well, Ben Neiman kicks back to off ball, and you get Trevor Nowatzki back that could step down to Sam. We looked much more natural at linebacker this past week, so it was great. And then also on top of that, you can't forget the addition of Ife Melifonwu, which we're going to touch on here in a second, because Ife coming back led us to certain sub packages where the offense could have 11 personnel, running back and a tight end on the field, and the Lions would match with one linebacker. And instead, they go 3 safeties. Branch, we call Brian Branch. He'd be corner at that time. Iffy going to safety, and then Kirby at safety. It allowed them to put guys like Iffy on a tight end rather than having to put a linebacker in that spot. So actually, at times, it allowed the Lions kind of to minimize how many players they actually had to put out there within that second level, which I think was a nice addition as well, because we had struggled there the last few weeks a little bit with certain matchups, especially against the Bills specifically, even against the Bears a little bit. So the Detroit Lions waiving David Long, I don't think it was a result of, like, okay, he's coming off his worst performance. I thought he was coming off his best performance, and as of now, they're keeping Quan Alexander around, which also could end up at some point potentially being valuable for special teams. But then you also have, hopefully, the return of Jalen Reeves-Maybin soon. We saw him pop up with, like, oh, he's on the injury report. Okay, the window has begun. And then also potentially Alex Anzalone down the line here pretty soon. With Jalen Reeves-Maybin potentially returning this week, Dan Campbell sounds pretty optimistic that that's going to be the case. And then also now Khalif Raymond sounds like he's going to open up his 21-day window, though it doesn't sound like he's going to be back yet, but he is going to start that process of being able to return. It's fantastic. The Lions got a couple of guys hopefully on the way. They just have to look at how many players they can actually activate. That's going to be the big challenge left. But then also to the Teddy Bridgewater point, who's going to be the number 2, who's going to be the number 3? I'm not even sure, to be honest, based on what Dan Campbell said. I would lean towards Teddy Bridgewater probably being the backup. I would lean towards that. Dan Campbell said they had been in touch with him. He's staying in shape, but I don't even know who would be the number 2 at this point. I mean, it sounds like either guy could be the number 2 for the Lions. They could go either direction. He said, both those guys could play if we had to go that direction, but he does bring comfort, and getting into the playoffs, it's kind of a different animal a little bit for a young guy that hasn't played a lot in Hendon Hooker versus a guy like Teddy Bridgewater who just brings comfort to that room. So, look, I think it's a good addition. I'd probably assume that they would go to Teddy if you got to the playoffs, but if you had to go to him like immediately, they'd probably go to Hendon Hooker just because of how long he's actually been here. But either way, I feel good about it. Let's make the room a little bit stronger, and I think that's clearly what the Lions did here. Having 3 good quarterbacks is better than having 2, so I'll take that all day long. All right, so that is the Lions roster news. The other little side note that I wanted to throw in here, even though it's not really roster news, is that Shaq Barrett is going to be waived by the Miami Dolphins. He signed this offseason to a 1-year deal. He ultimately retired, and then the Miami Dolphins had the opportunity to allow him to become available by activating him. They decided not to do that, but now few weeks later, he is being waived by the Miami Dolphins, so he's going to become available. Now, if he is claimed by a team, he's actually ineligible for the season because he was retired, so he has to go unclaimed, and that would kind of make him like a free agent at that point for somebody to go after him and try to sign him or help for the playoffs. I think Shaq Barrett should be on the Lions' radar. I actually did a video with Shaq Barrett included about a month ago, so I don't want to do the same thing here, but instead I'll show you kind of an image of that thumbnail. It's about a month ago. We talk about the potential addition of a guy like Shaq Barrett when this kind of first thing broke, and then the Miami Dolphins like, yeah, we're not going to do that. We're actually not going to let him become available. But now they officially have, and I haven't really changed my thoughts. I still think the Lions should be interested there. They have had Pittman play a few snaps past week. I just think that, again, you go back to veteran, he'd give us a little bit more pass rush at that sandbacker position that we have. We don't really have a guy like that, and I think he fits in perfectly to that role. If the Lions want to go that direction, even for a rotational pass rusher, it is going to be strength in numbers through the playoffs, and I think he adds a lot of strength to that positional group for the Lions. So keep an eye on Shaq Barrett. I would say if I'm the Lions, I'd be interested in Shaq Barrett. We'll see if they are, but as of now, I'd be interested in Shaq Barrett, and it's just that he has to go unclaimed, and then every team, I guess, can kind of be in the mix for going after him if they want to. If you want to know more about Shaq Barrett, go check out that video. All right, now let's move over to the secondary performance against the Chicago Bears and show some of the key plays that stood out to me from that game. I wanted to show a few different examples from this game, that things that stood out, good and bad, specific players, and also some of the flexibility. Guys like Amik Robertson going to wide corner. I love how he played the game. I mean, there's some limitations when he's out there, but he looks supernatural stepping into that spot. I mean, I loved watching him play, especially the run defense. That was like the easiest thing to point to that he did so well. And then the bring back of Ife Melifonwu, who played 50 snaps in this game, gave up 2 receptions on 3 targets, and I still don't think his man coverage is perfect from that spot, and it still feels like in certain ways there's definitely work that can be done there. But the flexibility, the ability to step down and blitz, I thought the communication, for a guy that just stepped in immediately, he looked like he hadn't missed a step, like he hadn't been gone for any time. The communication was fantastic, and then you see right away the aggressiveness that they use for Ife Melifonwu right here where he's going to blitz off the edge here, but then also on top of that, the way that he disguises this. So the first play we have is a cover 3 look from the Lions defense. Well, excuse me, they show kind of a cover 3 look here pre-snap, but they're end up going to bail out of that. They're going to have Kirby Joseph work over top. Terran Arnold's going to step down in kind of a 2-deep safety look in this spot. But if he's going to blitz off the edge here, right off the right tackle. Now, the key to this is really the blitz setup on the play, because as you're going to notice, they're going to show a double A gap look, and they're going to bring Ben Niemann and drop out Jack Campbell. Right side of the offensive line, at that point, is overwhelmed. You have the running back who steps in to deal with Ben Niemann. They're going to slide out, so you have the right guard here, right tackle here, and then Ife Melifonwu gets unblocked. Now, you're going to see him turn a corner. He also just an aspect simply of, hey, this is a really good disguise from Ife Melifonwu, who's still not showing it on the play, even after the motion. Some guys try to cheat pre-snap. He doesn't cheat at all here. What I love about this one is that they're not even going to show Jack Campbell. Jack Campbell's really not going to even show. He's not even going to touch to drop. He instead is just going to immediately bail out on the play. But you see here, you kind of have like an inside threat at the defensive tackle position here, almost playing a little bit of what looks like kind of a 2-eye potentially from this angle. So again, that takes the eyes of the center on the play, plus with the double A gap look. So as you notice here, when Jack Campbell drops out, you could see that he passes this off understandably to the running back on the play. You weren't expecting Ife to blitz here, and then all of a sudden, when your defensive tackle jumps back outside of the guard, now the center gets himself in no man's land, and they're completely overwhelmed on the right side of this offensive line. If he doesn't show that he's blitzing pre-snap, they step down here and they roll over top. Now, Terran Arnold, I think, does a nice job kind of staying on the underneath route a little bit more towards the sticks rather than giving up too much depth. And you see Ife's ability to turn the corner and fill the pocket. Now, he almost got himself into trouble doing that, but a heck of a job in terms of contain on this play, because otherwise this could have become a problem. And this was za'darius Smith here who kind of ran over the guard, even though he kind of just fell down. And then he got back over top on this play, and the Lions covered it up well. And that was another aspect, too. We talked about plastering late on plays, and that was an issue Lions had constantly against the Buffalo Bills. But look at them in the back end here, right? You have a high-low setup, and you're going to have Kirby plaster, Terrion can plaster here on the outside receiver, and that's what they do a great job of, right? They kind of just funnel it in on the sideline. And then on the backside here, let's race down and take this backside throw away. So the Lions do a great job in terms of containing there, and then also on top of that, they do a great job with how the back end plasters everything downfield. The play that we're going to look at is a cover 3 look, and this one ends up being an incomplete pass here. They take a shot over top, and for me, this is a cover 3 blitz. This is a really good coverage by Terrion Arnold. Now, again, a little bit of disguise pre versus first post-snap. Pre-snap, you can see kind of a press look. It almost looks like man coverage. You have Brian Branch stepping down kind of on a tight end that's in line here. And then this snap, you're going to get a bail. So you're going to get a blitz out of it, right? Now, Brian Branch, he's going to show blitz, and then he's going to drop. They're going to drop here, and they're going to blitz here. So they're going to have 3 underneath defenders. So they're going to show man blitz, and then they're going to bail out of it. So here's the press bail look from Terrion. Now he's on top of the route. But in that press bail, it's sound between the safety and the cornerback. This breaks into a deep post, and we get an over route here. And this is very sound, right? Terrion, being in a bail situation, has to stay on top of the receiver. And that's exactly what he does. He doesn't pass this thing off. He stays on top of it, and that allows Kirby to shoot downhill and take away this over route. So Kirby drives, Terrion stays on top right here, and there's nowhere for the quarterback to go with the football. So that's just really good play between those two guys. And obviously, again, we saw issues a week ago with Terrion specifically against the Bills. It was kind of a mess at times. Staying in these cover 3 looks, now you get a cover 3 sky look, a little bit more straightforward. Into the flat here goes Ife Melifonwu. Now he gets beat a little bit late. I think Ife just gets a little bit top heavy. He utilizes his hands a little bit, gets a little bit top heavy, and it gets him into trouble at the top of routes. And even though this one was there, it's a good setup, right? You have the under, then you have the dig, right? You kind of have the level setup that they're really doing, really 3 levels, under, dig. But this was the route that was open, so it was a good read eventually to get there. It just wasn't a great throw. It was behind him. But what I like from Amik, that even though this was open because it was a little bit of a scheme beater, I like how Amik Robertson played it. You could see the awareness in cover 3 where it was like, okay, this isn't on a route, under, he's going under, and he immediately finds the number 2 receiver. Reading the number 2 receiver through a cover 3 look is fantastic eyes, especially as it goes under to find the vertical threat. And that's what he does. He finds the vertical threat. Now breaks inside, but he still overlaps then his coverage to then go give support, where if this is caught, at least he's there to make a tackle. But at best, Amik closes, it's a bad throw, and now you get a breakup on the play. He had 2 pass breakups, and I believe that counted as one of them. So again, that's just great awareness from Amik. They had a guy open, but it's still great awareness across the board. And I wanted to highlight when we're doing things like that. Now this is a completion that we gave up here, and this was Brian Branch kind of on this over route. Then we ended up giving his completion, his cover 1 look right here. We don't love this because Rome Odunze was great in this game, but he kind of like slow plays it right here a little bit once he gets undercut. Free safeties on top of it, but the issue becomes that he slow plays it too much. The ball comes out late, and then he gives up the completion. He doesn't have some of that length to kind of make up. He needs to be in a good position throughout the entirety of the play. But what I like here was the cornerback play across the board. First off, top of your screen, Terrion Arnold one-on-one with Rome Odunze. He's going to have outside leverage, squeezing and funneling this thing back inside with only one receiver on his side of the field, and he does that. He maintains outside leverage. He sticks down here on kind of the whip route, settles in front of it. There's nowhere for Keenan Allen to go on the play. Sorry, I thought that was Rome. That's Keenan Allen. And then on the backside with DJ Moore, Amik Robertson with really good coverage as well. We'll see some of the recovery here on DJ Moore. And again, to me, this comes back to just staying on top of the stem of the route specifically. And a lot of times Lions will use these pedal techniques like this rather than going into immediately jam. They do a lot of pedal techniques in press man situations. So when they're pedaling like this to mirror match, read and react to where the release type takes them, just like this, it's important that you can stay on top of the route, or you can settle into your leverage if you have that and you're playing the leverage game. 2 receivers over here, outside leverage. Here we're playing staying on top of the route, pedal, mirror match type of route, and Amik does exactly that. He gets on top of it. Now, he gets a little bit unbalanced, but he stays directly on top of the stem of this route. It really doesn't allow DJ Moore to go anywhere. Then he uses his hands with great timing, kind of throws off the timing of the route. So even here, where he's a little bit pushed off balance, and you're like, okay, this is going to get into problems, look at how at the top of the route, he settles his feet, and then he drives back on the football. What I like from Amik is that he has a really good ability to not give too much depth. He settles himself down immediately. He doesn't let things, he doesn't let himself get pushed over top on plays. He has a real patience to his game, even though he isn't the fastest guy vertically. Even sometimes when he doesn't have direct help over top, he plays with real patience and route understanding and route development, where he doesn't get himself he doesn't feel like new. He doesn't feel like a rookie where he's getting pushed out of plays and it's like, okay, he got set up there. It's hard to set this guy up, right? He'll get beat, but it's hard to set him up. We stay on the defensive side of the ball. Let's go to another kind of creative look from the Lions here. And now this is an area where Amik out wide. I would like to see this be a little bit better, but he's playing in a slot all year this year. But this, I think, can be better. It wasn't terrible, but the Lions, this goes back to flexibility. Brian Branch is your slot. If he's your safety, you're going to go Tampa 2 invert. So the inverted player here, stepping down, Kirby Joseph becomes your middle field player, which is typically going to be a linebacker. Then they space it out. Here comes the 4-man rush, and then here are your 2 deep safeties. What I would like to see from Amik here on this dig route is to see him overlap and undercut, right? Squeeze this route a little bit. And he does ultimately, but right here it gets behind him a little bit. Then you got to find it, and it's a good job by Caleb because he's throwing the ball as he's turning the corner. So it's really good timing on a play like this. But if he can squeeze that just a little bit tighter, he may have an opportunity to really close that window without really having another threat on that side of the field. So it wasn't bad. It was really good timing by the offense. But if that was a little bit better, I think we could have been in a great spot there. And then the touchdown that we gave up, going to show some bad too. Quarters coverage, straight up. It's just cover 4 here for the Lions. And he gets beat on the double move. Now I'm watching this live thinking, okay, he got cooked by the receiver. He actually got kind of cooked by Caleb Williams in unison with reading the receiver on the play. So watch him at the top of the screen here, at the top of the route break right there as it goes into kind of a speed out look. Now Terrion's eyes hit the quarterback. There's a little bit of a pump fake attached there. Right there's the shoulder shrug, and Terrion drives on it, and then he gets beat over top. So I don't hate it because I do like that he's trying to read off man. He's trying to improve his balance there to really see both man and ball so that he can come away with these plays. Early in the season, there were times where he would kind of just like let it happen. It was like, man, if you were just a little bit, it took sooner, right? Because Carlton, we saw him get his pick like that. He does that really well. His off-man coverage is great. He's anticipation heavy, and he drives on it. This one was a little bit weird because I felt like there was anticipation, and he was allowing himself to kind of read it and try to jump on this route. But I feel like it took so long for the recovery here. Like the ball's not out, and then the recovery just took a little bit too long. Obviously, he doesn't have safety help. It's a dangerous spot to do that. There's certain coverages where you know you have help. You can do that. You're in a cover 3 cloud look, right? And, you know, the opposite corner has that, and you got a safety rolling over top. It's like, all right, you can do that. This spot's a little bit dangerous, but I don't hate it because, to me, I think it points to, you know, just growing. And I think that's what you saw a lot in this game. It was weird. I don't think Terrion graded out really well or had a great stat line. But I watched it, and I was super encouraged by Terrion. Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you this was his best game or something like that because it wasn't. But it was very encouraging. I walked away like, man, they beat him a couple times. Some great route runners, some vets did. But I didn't hate the way Terrion played at all. I thought, again, mental toughness was real. We saw the pass breakup late in the end zone. But just the way that he battled in this game, I thought there was a lot of good within his game. And we're going to watch it here. So he gets kind of in this off-band set. And again, this has given him some problems. Really good route discipline by DJ Moore here. And you can see that he's going to, late on the play, kind of lurk back over top. And that gets him into trouble here. So off-man, he's keeping his distance. He's staying at a nice pace. He's really trying to pace himself here in kind of this half-turn off-man. The problem becomes is as this route starts to gain more ground and really close the distance with him, that's when he gets too aggressive. And right here, he kind of leans over top. He starts to race back over top. Even though DJ Moore seemingly really doesn't change the pace of his route very much, outside of the top of the route when it's aggressive, like drop your weight, that is something that I think he would like to improve is like when they do that, being a little bit more instantaneous to it. But he didn't really change the pace of his route very much. It's just that as that ground closed, I think there's kind of sometimes an imbalance with Terrion between actually closing the ground of the receiver and giving him space and kind of just playing off him, where when he starts to close ground, it seems like it gets him into some trouble sometimes. And this one of those cases where it's like the pace didn't really change, yet he tried to close the ground with the receiver as the ground was closing on him by the receiver pushing vertically, and that forced him to jump over top of the route, and now he gets himself flipped around. Now he has this athleticism and this transition ability, which I think is elite. I think that's his best trait, is that ability to sink down, get back to the ball, and recover in some weird spots. It's a great skill set to have, but that's the kind of thing where it's just like, okay, in time, I think it's getting better, but there's clear areas for improvement here. And then some of the times they beat us just on some, like, yeah, that's really good. We're talking about this outside leverage thing. Obviously, Branch has that in the inside slot here. You're getting a little bit more straight up from Meek Robertson, but a very good release by Roma Dunze here. Kind of catches Meek off guard. You're going to see him here. There's a quick single step, and then boom, he gets that outside shoulder. There's the fade on the play, and Meek falls behind just a little bit right there looking for contact. Rome kind of leans and runs through it. He has a nice little upper body dip to his game, which makes it a little bit difficult to get clean shots. Brian Thomas does that really well as well. Guys that can do that can be really tough off the line. See, he kind of gets himself caught in recovery mode. He doesn't have the best long speed. And now here, face guard, find the football. It's a really good adjustment by the receiver. Meek kind of recovering, never gets himself in a spot where he actually feels like he has control to actually slow himself down to actually go make a play on this football, and then he just gets beat at the catch point. So it wasn't like awful coverage. It's sometimes it's like, hey, they made a really good play. Now, you see good from Iffy down here. This is one of those examples. One backer on the field. Iffy gets matched up with Cole Kmet. He runs his dig right. He covers this well. Again, talk about staying on top of the stem of route. I mean, he's just, boom, right on top of it, meets him on top of the route right here, and then he's able to work back inside. Again, he's a little bit top heavy, utilizes his hands a lot, but this was good coverage here, and it just so happens that they made an excellent grab, and they had a lot of plays where it was like that. It was like, yo, they made a great grab, especially on Brian Branch. Made a lot of great plays like that, but if that's how you have to win constantly, I'll take that as a defensive guy all day long. Like, if that's how you're going to win, great. Now, this was great communication. I'm talking about communication. Now, this is where the Lions are really good in the red zone. The second level has been the issue. We've had linebacker breakdowns. Turner in this game was late. We give up a touchdown. But we saw the play where he doesn't throw it because he throws it over Kirby, right? Because Kirby drops out, and we can disguise things. And I'll show another example, but this is where the Lions secondary is such a problem for teams, is when they get inside of 20 and a field condenses, they really communicate well. I can remember, like, I think it was like year one. I mean, teams would run like the goal line little plays where it would be like, all right, we're just going to switch these two, and it'd just give us problems. But we've come such a long way there. And we could see it, again, as soon as Iffy steps back in, he's playing super fast. So watch here, right? If you look at the splits pre-snap, you have a wide receiver and you have two slots. So the two slots communicate Branch and Iffy. They're going to switch this thing off. Meanwhile, you're going to lock your number one outside receiver here with Amik Robertson. So watch how this plays out. So you're going to get the switch release right there. So Branch drops it off. Inside leverage, Kirby Joseph picks it up, and then Branch is going to pick up here Keenan Allen. But then watch Iffy as well. We'll show Terry in a second. Iffy steps over, and he reads this off the quarterback's eyes, and he's immediately right here. I'm dropping this off. Kirby, drop out. I got it. I'm taking this over route. So he is very quickly jumping on this, communicating, making himself known, which is great. Even though it's not super necessary here, it's great. There's a lot of good on this play. But watch the two communicate. There's a smooth pass off here, and with that being the case, now you're locked number one. The spacing is everything. Nobody's bumping into each other, but they avoid. So Meek steps back over top. Branch leaks out with the wheel route, and you have a chance right here. But if you watch Meek, this is, again, what he does so well. Meek at the top of the route is not overplaying anything, right? Watch him out wide here. He's just settling down right here. As soon as that route starts to turn inside, he kills his feet pedaling it all. He's just planting, he's popping a little bit, like sometimes cornerbacks will pop, that way they can stay active so they can plant drive. So he can pop right here, pop, and then he's on the football and he's not giving up any ground, so the ball doesn't get thrown. And then back over the middle of the field where the ball wants to go, if he steps over, Kirby picks it up well, and then Jack Campbell. This scenario, I think he's improved so much. We did a video on Jack like a week ago. He's playing underneath the route like this, right? Settling in underneath the route. He reads it through the break, and then he fades back underneath. And this is a huge growth spot for Jack Campbell for me. Right here, he reads it, get it behind him, and then he opens up to it, and now there's no passing window. And then Terry on one-on-one does a pretty nice job, right? It's not super pretty, and it's never really probably going to be pretty against some of these receivers in the NFL, but it worked. Aaron Arnold, who's working here one-on-one, you can see he gives you that kind of jam show off the line of scrimmage, and then again, he immediately opens himself up because of the vertical push here from DJ Moore. So watch DJ's release. There's a little false step for him, and then he's immediately towards the outside release on the play. So Terrion decides to mirror that. I like how here he's low in his pads, he's low in his pedal, and he tries to launch out. Now, he's explosive in his hips to get out here. Problem is right here, he starts to fall over his toes a little bit, and that can get him into trouble off the release. We've seen that before on slants. We'll show that later. But the recovery is everything because he does take away the outside release by exploding back over top. And then because of that, now DJ Moore's like, all right, I'm going to attack your blind spot. Let me get back inside. Terrion uses his length and his recovery ability, look at this, to settle himself in, open himself back up with good contact, and now he just throws off the entire timing of this route, and he's settled right back in on the play, and he's right there with him, right? He's got real flexibility in his game and real ability to contort himself in weird spots like this to just maintain balance, keep his feet underneath him, and not be caught lunging or out of control. And that's the biggest thing I think for a cornerback constantly is just being controlled. And we go back, and this was the slant that Terrion got beat on, but I'm watching this, and again, I'm still encouraged by so much of this. We're going to get Keenan really fast off the ball here, and Terrion gets a little bit sluggish with his footwork to mirror it. Come to balance, and then there's the outside release that's going to be rounded here from the receiver. So you don't even really get a single step to this. He's going to round this, come to balance, round it. Terrion does his false step, but you see he's a little bit sluggish out of it, so I feel like he falls behind a little bit. Now you get that incredible hip flexion to open himself back up, get back into the play, and he is balanced at this point. He's low in his pads, letting the momentum carry him vertically, and that becomes the problem here, is that momentum is just carrying him vertically, but I think it's all from the start where he kind of falls behind a little bit, and it feels like the whole time he's kind of playing catch up with his footwork, because right here, he comes to balance, but you're getting that final step already from Allen, so when Allen pushes, and he pushes back inside, now he's still coming to balance, so he's just a little bit pushed up with his forward momentum, but I still like the way that he recovers, finds an inside hand, and the biggest thing that gets in trouble here is he doesn't have the feet, he doesn't have his feet underneath him to plant or explode back to the ball. You can see right here, he's lunging back, right? He's stretched out completely. He doesn't have his feet underneath him anymore. So being a little bit sluggish, doesn't get his feet underneath him, and now he can't fire back to the ball, and then at this point, he's behind. It's a really good ball. Terrion's right there. He contested it. I thought it was pretty darn good because he had been getting cooked on slants pretty much all year. That was really nice. It was better, but it wasn't perfect. Right? So I think it's getting there. And then Brian Branch's instincts. So we showed a kind of a weird play, but the instincts are always fantastic, right? You get the motion pre-snap, and he feels that, and he steps over. You have him as your third underneath defender here. Lions are showing a two-deep look on the play, and kind of a quarters look they're almost showing on the play. And you can see the instincts to be like, okay, I want to drive on that. And he does it immediately. He lets the block sit up, and then he goes as soon as the ball's out. He's on his toes. He's ready for it. He shuts this thing down for a loss of 1. Stay with Terrion Arnold, and again, this is one of those examples where I just feels like he gives a little bit too much space. I love the jam off the line. He can show it. He can use it right there. Boom. And then he can get back to balance. It's an effective jam. Now he's staying in kind of that half-turn look with this guy. The problem I don't like here is how much space he's actually giving towards the outside receiver, DJ Moore, right? And trying to mirror match, you get kind of a double move. He's going to sit, break, then get up, and then sit again. And a problem because right here is you can see that he's allowing space. He's allowing some space, and you kind of have to sit down with him. And again, he's lunging a little bit, so he's not completely underneath himself. And then when he takes off again, now he starts to try to close the depth. I don't hate it because, like, hey, they're not going to be a triple move. He made the double move. Now I close the ground. But he closes it, and he gets himself caught back a little bit over top, and that leads to some of the separation and kind of the reaching back on the play. So the control can be a little bit off at times with some of the pacing, I think, working with these receivers, but you still see the recovery at the top of the route. And then again, everywhere else on the play is covered up pretty darn well here. Now they do an interesting job because on this play, they end up splitting out the point man. So they have the point man, Cole Kmet work out, and then you can see both guys are in off coverage for spacing reasons. And once that gets peeled over to Brian Branch, now they have a spacing problem in terms of passing this thing off. But I think they handle it well, right? You could still see like there's an awareness from Branch, like let me get over top, Amik settling on top, and then again his footwork, he's not giving any more ground. He's just settling in, not giving up ground, plant, drive on the football, ball doesn't come out there. So again, it's really good from the outside corners. Amik I thought was super natural plugging in here. I didn't love from Iffy on this play. I see what he's trying to do. I think it's a really nice job by Cole Kmet. Watch Cole Kmet off the ball here. So as the point man, he releases inside, but you see with the release, notice how he sticks his arm out right here. He makes it difficult for Iffy to get a clean shot on him. So now as he's looking for contact, he falls behind on the play like this. Now he's trailing him on the play. And once he gets caught in trail, he's not in a really good spot here. And that's where you give up some separation. So this was a nice route by Cole, but in the spot like that, I would just like, hey, be patient. No, Brian Branch is what he's capable of. This is why it's fun moving him everywhere because you put him back in the slot, you play cover 3, and he is just so instinctual, right? First off, immediately gets outside the number 1 receiver. So he's immediately funneling the play back inside. So he's already outside the 1. Rides that vertically, there's the underneath threat, and then he steps underneath kind of the sail route here right there, boom. So now there's nowhere for the ball to be thrown, and that's where Brian Branch is so tough, just how smooth he is in these coverage spots, just working through traffic. It's so fluid, and then again, when the play breaks down, which was such a huge step, we contained it really well on a play like this, right? With a 4-man rush, we contained it really well. There's the outside rush, there's the spin outside, so there's pressure, but then we spin back outside, we contain it, and then we have to plaster here. So bam, find somebody, attack, and that's exactly what they do. So everybody's finding somebody in the back end, and that's huge, especially here at the top of the screen where you can see we're finding the route and we're just going to run with him vertically on the play. A linebacker, Ezekiel Turner. So plastering was much better. And then again, towards the red zone, one-on-one, and this is the mental toughness. It hasn't been a perfect day, but I love it here. So again, singled up receiver. He's out wide on the play. So in this case, Terrion is just going to try to stay on top of the route. Watch him mirror the pedal. Look, the whole way. Pedal, stays on top of it, cuts it off, and it's an incomplete pass. He's super capable of doing things like that. The footwork is on point there, and then finds the football, and we know how tough he is at the catch point. When he's contested like that, he's a problem at the catch point. And then this is the flexibility they have. They could bring Branch off the edge, and just like the first play, to kind of bring everything full circle, you overload one side of the field, and you have everybody rush to that side. You drop here, so everybody's accounted for Andre Swift because Brian Branch isn't showing blitz. He just brings it from the slot position. DeAndre Swift on the wrong side. Branch becomes the free rusher, and that forces this pass to be high and missed in the back of the end zone. Terrion, I would have liked to see find it a little bit better between Terrion and Iffy. So again, that's the flexibility. That's where we talk about, strength in numbers, where it's going to have to kind of come from everybody. But also on top of all of that, not just coming from everybody, it's also the fact that that's where the Lions became so tough, is that they were situationally fantastic last year in the playoffs. And again, they've been that this season. They've been great in the red zone, great on third down. But situationally, so much of it is a secondary flexibility. And I think this is a great game to kind of show that off. And hopefully with getting Alex back and Jalen, who may end up taking Ezekiel Turner's role, we'll see. Jalen was such a big part of that red zone defense. You get those two guys back who have been here, who understand it, and they're playing fast and they're playing smart. You're not having some of the easy breakdowns. The Lions could get back to being a very tough defense in those spots and continue that, because right now they're at full right now, really flexibility in the back end outside of just not having their normal starters. I'm going to leave it there. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you, Prod, for watching, and I'm out. Shout out to BetUS. Use that code YouTube150.